Alright, so lately I feel like I've been really turning a corner in War Thunder. Now, in reality, I've barely gotten better, but I feel a lot better. And I can tell things are slowly ticking up, even though I still routinely make some of the dumbest and most obvious mistakes anyone has ever seen. But like I said, it's changing for the better. And a lot of why it's changing is because of the War Thunder community. Those of you leaving comments, many of which have been incredibly helpful. And of course, some of them did take me seeing it 20 to 30 times before they started to sink in, but they're getting there. It's been people in the the Mediocre Thunder Discord. By the way, join if you haven't. If you're looking for a good War Thunder community, it's a cool group. But it's been them sharing tips and discussion and taking me along the way to drag me to some wins in squad play and then teach me a thing or two while we're doing it. So I'm making this video as a bit of a retrospective, a collection, and a reference for players like me. And I know they're out there, players who might find their way into the game a decade later than everybody else, and they're looking for some basic, some obvious, and some game-changing settings and tips that will enhance their tank battles in War Thunder. So here we are, the top lessons I have learned from the War Thunder community so far. Now, these first three are going to be purely functional, not even mindset ones. But we're starting off strong with the one that I messed up. Infinity times don't take so much ammunition. I cannot fathom how many pointless deaths I have suffered because I was taking way too much ammo into battle. If only War Thunder gave me a montage of all my ammunition load exploded deaths. It's got to be over a third of my deaths, I swear. Well, I'm not sure. Maybe paper armored American tanks getting their crew knocked out against explosive ammo at battle rating 1 would be number one. It's debatable. At any rate, I did not realize I was bringing just a powder keg to a fireworks fight. Reality is, even the best player might get off 30 shots before they have to move on from the tank by a forcible explosion. And if you're crushing it for so long that no one gets you, then props to you. Just roll back and reload. I hear in lower rank you might need to take a bit more in certain tanks because the reload speed can be so fast that it actually could become an issue. I can think of one Italian tank where that might come up. I mean, I was rolling into battle with like 140 shells. I don't even think tanks could fit that much, but it was a very funny and very silly thing for me to do because I often get blown up before I can fire a single shot. So why am I bringing 140? Bringing that many shells made me that much more likely to get blown up. I've only recently dropped my shell count down, so I'm hoping for some nice results, although you might see I still forget from time to time. Because I hot swap so many nations and so many tanks, I might not do it in the fly. Don't get mad at me. But it does segue me into my next point. It's that the tank layouts actually matter for damage. I came into War Thunder knowing literally nothing about how the game worked. I had no clue about the damage model, the types of ammo, and how tanks are recreated in a fairly historically accurate manner, like armor thickness, crew positions, weak spots, and of course, ammo storage. My experience with tanks to this point in games, or before War Thunder rather, was that they all had some kind of invisible HP bar where you'd shoot the tank and shoot them anywhere on the tank. You shoot them enough times and eventually they would take enough damage to where they would blow up. When I started out in War Thunder, I was using US tanks early, solid shot only obviously, and I was going insane because I would eventually not get blown up long enough to start landing shots. But of course I was just wildly firing them without any real plan and hitting nothing of importance. You see, to effectively get kills, you're really chasing, it seems, one of two primary outcomes. And correct me here if I'm missing something, correct me in the comments. You're either trying to knock out the crew or you're trying to blow up the ammo. And to do that, you need to really understand where those things are in the tank and where your shot might be able to get through to make solid contact. The whole ammo type and armor penetration thing is a larger conversation for a future state, mostly because I don't understand it well enough yet to talk intelligently enough about it, but it is a huge part of the game. And there's a handful of small settings in the menu that make a big difference. People told me again and again to turn off grass and gun sights, and I thought, no, that's silly. I want to keep it real. I like the immersion. And then I got blown up so many times while trying to peek over hills but having grass obfuscate my sights that I realized, hey, I should turn it off. I'm being dumb. Engine noise, that was a big one. Reducing your own engine volume so you can hear other engines coming as tanks try to creep up on you. And then changing my server settings so I always land on North America servers to reduce latency. Beyond those purely functional ones, I also got some mindset lessons. The first one that took me a long time to sink in is that objectives early on are a death trap. Now, as a player bad at getting kills, I often saw zone capture as one of the few reliable ways to get research points. So as a result, when a match started, I'd sprint toward the zone as quickly as I could for a capture, not realizing I was rolling into the sights of half the enemy's guns. Now, I've learned since that most players begin by positioning themselves in cover and scan that point, waiting for a sucker to roll up that they get to blow up. And that sucker, of course, was often me. Now, in that same vein, tank graveyards are a really clear warning sign and not just a nuisance to drive through. If you're rolling down a path and you see the corpses of tanks from your side still burning, there's very likely a reason. Big warning bells should go off that say, hey, avoid that path. A hilarious amount of times I've cruised through a street in an urban map littered with tanks and thought, man, what went down here? And then I would get blown up and I would say, well, that actually makes a lot of sense. But before tanks get blown up, it actually is vitally important to stick with the crowd. This is not a game for a lone wolf. Taking on multiple tanks at once on your own is extremely difficult, especially because half the time you'll never see them coming. When matches start, there is typically an obvious blob moving in one or two directions. A novice player, and this is what I did, might see that and say, well, they're going to those two objectives, I'm going to go to the third to make sure we're getting them all covered. And guess what? Terrible choice. There's usually a reason no one else is going that way, and you end up in a 2-on-1, 3-on-1, 5-on-1. And the final lesson, and this is one I've had to teach myself the painful way, that only got reinforced when I started squad play, is that you aren't nearly as sneaky as you think you are. Every side approach you're taking, the enemy knows about. You think you're going to set up on the far side of the map and snipe from a covered position? Guess what? Enemies planning the same thing, it is probably a better shot than you. It was always maddening for me to look at a map in my early days, pick out what I thought would be a perfect spot to set up, only to get blown up from a different, more hidden angle that turned out actually was a perfect spot to catch me coming. What I've learned from how people communicate and how experienced players can spot tanks is that you will be spotted immediately, and someone who knows their gun incredibly well will train it on you and make you pay for your poor decision. War Thunder isn't reaction time and speed. It's not a game of who can quick draw their tank cannon on the other one faster. If you're playing that game, you might get the occasional kill, but playing that fast and loose doesn't usually equate to longevity. And that brings us to the end of today's video, my friends. It's a game of constant learning. I realize there are a ton of lessons for me to even still uncover. I hope you join me along the way and continue the education. Subscribe if you can. I'll see you next time either way. Mediocre Thunder, signing off.